I'm Tushar Mehta, the co-founder and CEO at Zip Electric, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. A very warm welcome to our esteemed panelists who have taken out time from their extremely busy schedule to share their thoughts on this very important topic for today, that is EV adoption in last mile delivery and ride sharing. In the discussion, we'll like to understand how EV adoption is happening in your businesses, what are the challenges which you are facing, and what is the ultimate vision towards which your company is working and making world a greener place to live at. So before we get into the discussion, I would request the panelists to share a small introduction about themselves, which will help the viewers to know whom they are listening to. So let's start. Vikash, you like to go first?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Vikash. I'm the founder and CEO of Moving. Prior to Moving, I have worked in the energy and mobility space for 20 years in companies like Indian Oil, Shell, McKinsey. And in the last 5 years, I've been championing the cause of electric mobility in India. And for the last 2 years, building Moving as a 100% EV fleet delivery service for the last mile delivery applications.
Thank you, Vikash. Manish.
Hi everyone, this is Manish Gupta. I head business operations at Porter. Porter is an intercity, tech-based intercity app logistics company. We are spread across 18 cities in the country. About me, I've been associated with the startup world for the last 20 years. For the very first 10-15 years, I was part of the founding team for IndiaMart.com. And then we co-founded a company called Unicommerce, which eventually we sold to Snapdeal. And for the last 4-5 years, I've been with Porter. It's an exciting journey, logistics is a space which we are enjoying a lot.
I'm sure. Thanks, Manish. Thanks, Vikash. MS, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mohit Sardana, and I head logistics at Zomato. So anything and everything to do with delivery partners within the Zomato universe is something that I manage.
Thank you. Thanks, MS. Samrat.
Hi everyone, I'm Samrat Paul and I'm heading last mile operations at Zepto. I'm sure most of you will be users of Zepto. It's about 1.5 years since we have gone live, and I mean the rate of growth that we have seen is honestly overwhelming, but very exciting too, right? And we have been, I'm very proud to say that right from the start, we have been looking at EVs as a medium, to optimize costs. And, one angle there is sustainability, but other angle you have a lot of cost goodness out of this, kind of intervention. So, yeah, we can discuss more about it.
Absolutely. That's the objective of the discussion. Thanks, Samrat. Thanks for your introduction. So let's start with a few questions. So the first question for the panel would be that where does EV stand in your overall scheme of business? Like what is the percentage of your fleet which is electric? What percentage of your deliveries, rides are done through EVs? So let's understand, all of you are coming from big companies. So where is EV placed in your overall scheme of things? Let's start with MS.
Sure. So I think, Tushar, the journey to scale up EVs is something that has started for us recently. I think even now, EVs are a minuscule proportion of our overall fleet. So at a pan-India level, maybe it will be in the small single digits. However, I mean, through lots of partners, there are cities where we have focused on, specifically being Delhi and Bangalore, where now our fleet is sort of closer to 10% for that overall city. And having seen how that scale up has happened, we plan to sort of scale this entire EV through partner initiative for us across all the other major and smaller cities as well. The advantage obviously is that helps towards building sustainable operations. There is a long-term cost advantage. We are not seeing that right now at this scale, given sort of how we operate, where essentially currently the cost of ownership of a EV or the cost of hiring an EV for our delivery partners gets compensated by the running costs of a ICE bike, right? Because people are paying for petrol on one side, and on the other side, they are paying rentals. So till the time that EV becomes the first choice for a large number of potential delivery partners as a personal vehicle of choice, I don't see cost advantages flowing to us at this stage. But once that movement starts happening, then I see cost advantage coming as well, and I see that as a 1 year, 2 year journey. And we want to be at the forefront of driving that adoption, working with our partners.
Okay, sure. Samrat, what about Zepto? How is it in Zepto?
Yeah, like I mentioned, right, we have been early movers in the EV space, and in fact, one of our association with Zip has been like right from the beginning, right? So we currently have a 15% of the fleet as EVs at a national level, right? And the number is only going to go up, primarily based in Delhi, NCR, and Bangalore, rightly said by Mohit. Um, Partly also because today the biggest challenge that I see is the infrastructure, right? If you may have hundreds of OEMs, but if you don't have charging infra, if you don't have swapping infra, there's no point of putting that deploying that vehicle, right? So yes, that's the biggest challenge as of today. And say in the next 2 years or so, we plan to go from 15 to 40, and by 2028 or so, we want to go up to 80%, as high as 80%. So that is the idea.
80% by 2025.
28.
28. That's nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How is it? Thanks, Samrat. How is it for Porter, Manish? And you also have, apart from two-wheelers, whereas Zomato and Zepto primarily have two-wheelers, you also have loaders in your business and different category of vehicles. So we would love to hear how is it category-wise?
Yeah. So our journey started about a year and a half back. We are pretty bullish about EV because of two reasons. One, we see there's a huge opportunity for us to bring down the carbon footprint in logistics. And also, it also paves the way to enhance the earning of my driver partner, which is the center stage for my whole business. We have been working with almost all the OEMs and the fleet partners. Our focus has been primarily two-wheelers and three-wheelers only because these are the only two categories where we have the vehicles at the moment, which are the advanced stages or in the market. But still, I consider our EV programs in a state of infancy. Its contribution to the whole business is very minuscule, 1 to 2% of the whole fleet. Though we have almost like 5,000 vehicles across 2 to 3 cities. Our primary focus area, as mentioned by Mohit, and is Delhi and Bangalore for multiple reasons. Places like Delhi, I think, especially in the three-wheeler segment, we got a very fair play. We almost have 50% of our three-wheeler fleet, which is
That's amazing.
and yeah, and there are multiple reasons for it. I'll discuss as we go along. And we are very bullish about it. Probably we'll take it to 80 to 100% in next 2 years. That's so Delhi, Bangalore remains the important market. Three-wheeler, two-wheeler focus category. And yes, I think a long way to go. It's not an easy journey, I would say.
Sure. So I guess one thing which is coming out predominantly from everybody is that availability of vehicles is actually driving the electric penetration, which is primarily in Delhi and Bangalore cities. And in Porter, you have seen it very aggressively in three-wheelers, which is wonderful, 50% plus. But any particular reason why the adoption is so high in three-wheelers?
I think there are multiple reasons for it. So one of the key reasons is the type of government support which you get. So one clear advantage with three-wheelers or the truck EV three-wheelers have, as compared to the ICE vehicle, is that there's no entry restriction for them in Delhi throughout the day, which is one of the biggest, I think, blocker or restriction for all the other commercial vehicles. So that means a typical EV has got full day to actually operate and make more money than even an ICE vehicle. That is one. Second thing
Sure.
is there has been, I think, the government policy pertaining to having a certain percentage of the fleet as EV is in very advanced stages. So the government push is very high. Then there's also a reason, like for example, the conventional vehicles like Champion, which has stopped production about 2 3 years back, and it's on a phase out journey. Now that particular space, that is a big vacuum which is there. And fourth important thing is in Delhi, once the CNG came into place, commercial three-wheeler never market never evolved. So when we stepped into this particular category, we actually it was like a blue ocean. We actually built this category, and when we were building this category, we have that option to either go for a ICE or a three-wheeler, ICE or a EV, and we thought why this is the best place to actually start with the EV. So I think these are 4 or 5 things that's which has really worked in favor. So it makes all the economic sense also, and we had that free hand to build a category from scratch. So we had a choice in our hand.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a wonderful story for the electric mobility to pick. So moving to Vikash. So on the other side, so while we hear from the businesses how their adoption has been, and they are, as per them, it's more on the availability of infra, availability of vehicles, certain government regulations which really work in their favor. How have you seen the adoption? Which businesses, which segments have been the early adopters for electric vehicles? How has been moving journey so far?
Yeah, thanks, Tushar. So, uh, I'm very glad to hear very positive feedback from all of our fellow panelists about their EV adoption mandate and the journey they want to take. It gives me confidence that the 2 years old startup that we have started was the very fact that we believe that last mile delivery is the first use case that we can get potentially 100% electrify in the next 3 to 5 years. And in three-wheeler segment, we saw that early on, and that's why our fleet that we have about 1,600 vehicles is 900 three-wheelers and 700 two-wheelers. So our proportionate of three-wheelers is more than the two-wheelers, because that is a segment we saw sale of EV has crossed the CNG and the diesel vehicle month on month. The adoption is almost 60% month on month sales wise. And the reason being, what Manish has said, totally correct. But in addition to that, a typical EV in the three-wheeler segment can perform as good as a typical ICE vehicle in terms of distance that it can travel. They don't need a fast charging solutions or too much of charging network. A driver ownership is easier in three-wheeler given the ticket size and easy to operate and all. So all these factors is also contributing for e-three-wheeler to become a more adoption in this space. Two-wheeler is also interesting, and I think when millions of vehicles are being used in the two-wheeler frame with the likes of food delivery, groceries, quick e-commerce that we are seeing building up, all these sectors are huge users of the two-wheeler case. And the aggressive target, what Zepto Samrat was talking about, what Mohit was talking about, if you just add up even the 50% of the target that they have, it adds to about 1 million vehicles already that we need to deploy in this segment. Now, where will the challenges that we see in terms of where will this million vehicles has to be manufactured, it has to be sold, and it has to be bought, and it has to be charged on a daily basis. There are a lot of OEMs who have come up in the two-wheeler space. In three-wheeler space also, almost 250 plus OEMs are in the market. So the product reliability is an important concern that we have seen. A lot many poor quality product also make way into that fleet mix when you try to do aggressive EV. And the customer experience, I'm talking about the end customer experience of Porter or Zomato or Zepto becomes poor. So the selection of the right product that you would like to deploy on the platform becomes a very important factor. And we feel that if that choice as a fleet operator, you make the right choice, I think you are in a good shape to deploy vehicles. Second thing, on the charging front, we have realized that yes, the infrastructure is not available, but frankly speaking, for two-wheeler, you don't need any charging infra. We have seen the data of all the vehicles on a daily basis. Typical running distance about 50, 60 kilometers on a day, and you have many vehicle options that you have where you have 80 kilometer to 100 kilometer plus kind of range vehicles available, right? But of course, if you want to increase the earning income of the drivers, they would like to work for one shift, 1.5 shift, and two shift. So you can increase the earning potential of a driver, and for that case, you need some kind of charging option, whether it's is a circular option or the fast charging options or typical slow charging options. So that infrastructure is required for moving from one shift operations to two shift operations. But third, the challenges that I see in terms of EV ownership is the financing. The typical financing cost for, and I think Mohit mentioned that point, the rental is very high. The reason why rental is very high, one is the upfront cost of the vehicle is almost high. That is one. Number two is the financing cost becomes high. And when you try to reduce the tenure of the vehicle by 2 years for two-wheeler and 3 years for three-wheeler, your EMI portion becomes on the higher side. So high financing cost, high upfront cost, low tenure of year, all this combination makes the financing cost high and overall EMI high, and that is the impact on the rental that we saw. But I think so. Going forward, as we scale up, we see more battery cell pricing coming down, then the vehicle price coming down, financial institutions becoming more comfortable in financing the electric vehicle. All those factors will start adding to the TCO, and it will become more and more attractive going forward. And eventually, the benefits that all of the individual customers should get, they should definitely get the benefit of being the early adopters of EV.
Great points. So I rightly said, a product is very important, and a selection of the right product will be a big boost for the overall industry. On the second point, our friend from Zomato won't agree that 50, 70, 80 kilometers is sufficient because their vehicles run a lot more. And that is one challenge which we always want to solve for our clients like Zomato. So I guess a hybrid option would be a better, depending on the use case of.
Thanks.
But yeah, cost of
Thanks for bringing that up, Tushar.
I still remember the first discussion which we had, where the only thing which we discussed was range. That how can you give me a 150 kilometer range?
Yes, I think given that, the customer wants to order from as far as possible, and now food delivery, I think our radiuses have increased to 15, 20 kilometers in all the major cities. So I think for us, for one shift also, the travel would be anywhere between 120 to 150 kilometers, including sort of everything. So yeah, thanks, Tushar.
Cool. So moving on to the next question, I guess while Samrat laid their ambitious plan of 80% by 2028, I would want to know from others as well, what is the plan, what is the vision that, or is there any mandate which the companies are chasing in terms of electrifying their overall fleet, in terms of electrifying their section of business, and what is that mandate? So let's start with Zomato, Mohit. What is it that Zomato wants to achieve by, say, 2030?
Yeah, so I think we've publicly stated that we want to be 100% electrified with our fleet by 2030. And okay. I think this year has been a good year in that sense. We've moved from having about a fleet of 4,000 at the beginning. Last year, at the beginning of the year, we were at 4,000, and now we are close to 9,000 sort of delivery partners who work on electric vehicles. So it's been a good start, but I think we are a long way. And
very long way.
While the initial green shoots are there, I still have to get my head around on how to even make a Excel plan of getting to 100% by 2030.
Correct. But how do you see the journey? Because see, Zomato fleet is enormous. It's very large. Last mile delivery, food delivery constitutes a very large chunk of the overall scheme of things. So while 2030 is an ambitious target of making it 100%, how do you see this journey evolving? Is it going to be city by city, or it going to be across? What's the journey which is there?
So I think we foresee two kinds of paths to get there, right? The first path would mean a significant change in the way that sort of we and our delivery partners operate, which is that currently very few of our delivery partners work with vehicles that are not owned by them, right? Because these vehicles are self-owned and also used for personal purposes. And also that given that a large chunk of our fleet is actually a part-time fleet that works for only a few hours on a few days, they do not consider the cost of ownership in their cost of operations.
Okay.
So path number one is a path where there is a widespread adoption of electric vehicles by folks all around us. So electric vehicles end up being 90 to 95% of total two-wheelers that are sold in the market. And folks who want to earn some extra money delivering food end up utilizing those vehicles for food delivery, and therefore we have a 100% fleet. But that would mean a huge amount of adoption all across the country, which basically means that all OEMs should basically be selling mostly electric vehicles by 2030, right? That's path one. I think there is some movement in that path. There are a few states that have called out that they will not be registering, they'll only be registering a certain number of ICE vehicles every year. So as more and more government mandates come in, rules and policies come in, we will start seeing a shift in that direction. The second, which will involve the change in the DNA of how we operate, would be that we start working with a lot more of partners, right? And partners such as Zip then end up becoming service providers for multiple delivery companies and have these fleets that are then used by folks who don't use their own vehicles, but use vehicles that are provided for this particular purpose, right? So one of the things where we have seen a really good amount of adoption of partners and their electric bikes is the segment of people who don't have their own vehicle but want to work in delivering food and grocery.
Sure.
And the kind of partnership that we have helps in giving a path to giving a path to earning for such kind of people, right? So I honestly personally feel that a combination of these two paths is probably what is going to get us to 100% by 2030. But I'm hoping it is the first one, because that would mean that I will be able to bank a larger chunk of saving into my costs and have lower cost
Sure.
of operation.
Okay, important point. So, but right now, whatever percentage of the fleet is there, what percentage of your overall EV fleet comes as a captive, and what percentage is from the providers like Zip?
I think it's almost 75-25, which is 75 through partners like Zip,
Okay.
and 25% which are kind of self-owned. Interestingly, a large chunk of self-owned is actually in smaller cities. So in smaller cities, we are seeing an adoption of electric vehicles for personal use, and we don't have any large-scale partners in smaller cities right now. But the adoption there is being driven by people buying electric scooters for their own personal needs.
Oh, that's a very interesting insight. Whereas in IC engine, I guess it would be majorly captive supply.
That's right.
Okay, great. Understood.
I mean, when you mean captive, I guess you mean that it is people owning their own bikes, right? And
correct. Individuals. Yeah. Okay, great. So Samrat, you threw a very important milestone, which is the 80% fleet by 2028. So how do you see Zepto planning this journey? Again, the same question to you. How do you see it? Whether you will be cracking city by city? What is the kind of ownership versus business fleet construct which you are seeing? So what's the journey towards this milestone?
It's a mix of what is the model that we'll have, right? I'd not discount any model over the other, right? I think there will be equal penetration of captive model as well as a partnership based model, right? What we have seen is definitely the partners who provides the entire infra, right? People, infra, vehicle, These are the most successful partners as of today, right? Uh, Today, unfortunately, we do not have too many partners of this scale, right? Who has expertise in all three, right?
Yeah.
So it completely depends on how many such partners crop up, and how the ecosystem develops in the whole of India, right? Uh, Zepto predominantly is present in the top seven metro cities, right? If you consider Delhi NCR as one, right?
Yeah.
What we have seen is not too many people own their EVs over here. Not too many people do. A lot of players are there, but we do have a huge market of people who are coming in and willing to work, who do not have vehicles, right? There's a huge market for that. And for that, it's just they're just waiting for an opportunity that who gives me a vehicle I can drive on, right?
Correct.
So a big chunk will be driven by partners. A big chunk will be driven by how well the infrastructure develops. Say, for example, today you can fill fuel in any petrol pumps, right? Tomorrow you need to have the same charging or swapping infra at every fuel pumps,
Correct.
right? If you don't have that, I don't think this kind of adoption will be driven. And again, a third stakeholder is again involved over here. That is the fuel pump owners and all this. It's a completely different ball game, right? Maybe in the future you'll have more retail shops throwing their shops open for charging infra and swapping infra, right? So personally, I think still in the future it will be a 50-50 blend. 50% will be people who will be owning vehicles, and 50% will be through all these various different
Correct.
mechanisms.
So I completely agree with Mohit and Samrat. I guess it's about EVs being available in the market. That infra, that ecosystem should exist, which makes it as comfortable as driving an IC engine. And that's when the change will start happening. So we have early providers like Zip who are trying to solve those problems, but it's still a very small percentage of the overall scheme of things. So the entire ecosystem needs to be solved in order to reach there. Great, understood. So the next question I would like to throw to Vikas. So Vikas, what do you think rider partners look for while they go for an EV, and what is required to bring it at par with an IC engine? So specifically to the B2B riders, the delivery partners, the ride sharing partners, what is it that they really look for in these vehicles, and how can this be developed at par with any IC engine?
Yeah. See, first thing is that the main purpose why rider would like to do this job is to have a stability of income, and their willingness to adopt EV will only happen when they see a stable income or even more income compared to the ICE vehicle, right? That's number one.
Yeah.
So I see some of the customers prefer that ICE vehicle is paid, let's say, X rupees per order, and they always think that okay, electric vehicle is a cheaper option, an alternate option. So they price EV at X minus 5 per order. Let's say, just for example. Actually, what is happening is it is actually dissuading those individual drivers to, rather than adopting EV, they would force to use ICE vehicle more, because ICE vehicle is paid more per order, right? So I think first thing that customers should not do is differentiate between a ICE vehicle in terms of what per order they are getting versus what a EV driver is getting, because that incentive misalignment completely takes a rider out of the equation. Second thing, uh, the rider wants a vehicle that they can use for multiple purposes and multiple use case, right? They would like to have a vehicle not to look like a delivery vehicle, in the sense like you put lot of things like in front of the vehicle, in the back of the vehicle, the side of the vehicle. They would like to use that vehicle for some other purpose also, and that can be like even going for a movie with the family, right? So they would not like to be seen as a delivery boy 24/7. that is a gig economy. There's a part-time job they want to do. They want to earn a good income, and that's it. After that, they don't want to identify themselves as a gig economy worker and delivery boy 24 by 7. So a lot of OEM or the product in the market, which is becoming too customized towards delivery, I think that is actually dissuading those individual partners to use that vehicle for personal use also. It's a look and feel and respect that you get by driving a ICE vehicle. The driving the EV vehicle, he should get the same respect and all.
Sure.
And third, from an economist point of view, they should not see that the cost is going up, whether it's a rental cost that they are paying per day, plus the charging cost that they are paying, or plus the maintenance cost they are paying. Their cost should be significantly lower, at least 10%, 15%, 25% lower than per day what they would have incurred the cost by running a ICE vehicle. So if the so three things, if they can get the same commercial as the ICE vehicle per order, that's number one. Number two, he gets the same respect by driving an EV vehicle compared to ICE vehicle. And third, he gets the extra net income by saving that cost on a TCO basis will definitely help in terms of EV adoption for driver partners.
Sure. Fair point, Vikas. While on the first point, I would throw that to some of our other panelists that whether they really differentiate in terms of paying per order to electric vehicles as compared to IC engines. Not all. I guess a lot of them actually pay at par. So that's a good sign. I would like Mohit, Samrat, and Manish to answer that question. How is it like? Do you really look at paying lesser for electric vehicle deliveries, or is it paid at par?
I think we learned from our mistakes. So we made the mistake that Vikas mentioned, and that's when we realized that we were not being able to scale up.
Sure.
And I think one of the first things that we did when we were making an aggressive plan to scale up was to say that for the next year or two, let's not look at electric vehicles as a way to save money, as a way to have lower delivery cost. That is going to be a byproduct of greater adoption, and need to play the long-term game over here. And playing the long-term game means that initially let's not differentiate. If there is better earning because the cost of rental is lower than the cost of fuel to run their own bikes, then let that play out. And as that adoption goes up, we will see greater fleet. And once there is a certain natural move towards adoption in EVs over a period of time, that will help us reduce our costs. So we learned from our mistakes and now have the absolute same rate cards.
That's great. That's
Plus
a great move.
also, it's a similar story. We don't see EV as a short-term journey, it's a long-term journey. And I think this is the time for adoption and scaling, time for monetization in terms of differentiated pricing or differentiated commission is probably going to come much later. I think it's first the adoption and the scale has to build up.
Correct. That's a great thought from all of you, and I guess that would really help EV to scale. Manish, just extending the question which I was asking Vikas, what do you think is the rider looking at when he's going for an electric vehicle, and what are the things which should be taken into consideration so that it is brought at par in terms of performance of an IC engine?
Yes, so today, see, most of the vehicles which are coming on our platform today, 80 to 85% come through the fleet owner. There are very limited individual drivers who are actually adopting the vehicle. And there are multiple reasons for it. One of the things is there are too many unknowns with the vehicle. So because most of the vehicles which are available in the market, they come from next gen or new generation OEMs, where I think so everything is new about it. So people are not aware how long about the OEM, the vehicle, how long the battery is going to suffice, what is going to be the resale value. So some of the factors which most of these people who purchase a vehicle they consider is the total cost of ownership. So definitely there is always a comparison between what is the price of the vehicle, ICE vehicle versus a EV vehicle. Second thing, which is of prime importance, which is the range the vehicle is offering. Like for example, in our business, typical range we are expecting it's 100 plus kilometers every day of operational range, which very few of the vehicles in the market are able to provide that. So range is another important thing. Third thing is, see, most of these vehicles are finance vehicles. And since EV is a newer technology with newer OEMs and far too many unknowns, so the cost of financing, EMIs are very expensive. So, and it is not even available to many of the individuals also. And some of the core financial institutions like banks and all that don't even offer these financing. So financing is another thing which is always there on his mind. Fourth thing is the maintenance of the vehicle, because the traditional and the conventional OEMs had a good service network. A regular mechanic can, if there's a breakdown, a regular mechanic can just check out and solve the problem. Here, there's always an anxiety about that also. Here, if in case the vehicle breaks down, where would I find somebody who can really take care of the vehicle and all that? And I think the fifth and the most important thing which people keep in mind is what is going to be the life of the vehicle and what is going to be the resale value of the vehicle. Because in generally in the commercial vehicle space, people start earning once the EMI is over, because that is one most important and a heavy portion of their operational expenses. In this case, they are not very sure after 3 years what is going to be the state of the vehicle or the battery, what is going to be the resale value of it, and how long it is going to last. I think so. These are 4, 5 major areas people consider when they're buying vehicles. I think a lot of work. All of us have to play a very critical role in terms of educating the partner, providing easy financing, bringing the price parity with the ICE vehicles, bringing in buyback guarantees, long-term warranties, maintenance and charging infrastructure, and even providing leasing offer for people to try the vehicle first and build confidence before even they go for buying for it.
Correct. Very well put. I guess I would resonate with most of the points which were made. And in fact, companies like Zip have also seen that financing journey, because when we started, nobody was ready to finance these vehicles. So we had the HNIs coming in financing. Then it was leasing. Then it was NBFCs. And now even leading banks like HDFCs, Kotak are also willing to finance these vehicles. So I'm sure it's a journey. And as the vehicle size grow, as these vehicles become older, the banks will also have trust and they will increase. But very well put. I guess it's very important. On the maintenance side, I guess I have a slightly different opinion. The electric vehicles are lesser in terms of maintenance cost and requirement in terms of IC engine. While you are right, the network is a challenge because it's still very low penetrated, but cost wise, it is lesser.
Yeah, cost wise is, but hassle wise it's different, because I understand since electric vehicle has got less moving parts, the breakdowns are going to be limited. But the
Correct.
thing is, number of people who are willing to really put their hand
Touch that vehicle
are very limited.
Even a vehicle which gets punctured, because the motor is there in the wheel, there are hardly any people who are ready to touch that vehicle. Such a basic thing, but really very tricky. Cool. Great. So just to all our viewers, you can put in your questions in the Q&A section.
I see that Aditya has also joined. I think.
Yes, Aditya has joined. Thanks, Aditya, for joining in.
Sorry, folks, I was like caught up with something very last minute. So
I'm sure
25,000 rupees for Uber platform.
We all adopted your name one by one.
I think so. It was to do with the Delhi news which is floating around.
Yeah, there are a couple of news which are going around, at least for this week is like heavy on PR for us from all fronts. So yeah, let's see what sticks.
Yeah, I hopefully it goes well. Great, Aditya. Thanks for joining in. I guess one question which I've covered with most of the panelists, and I would want you to answer. Where is electric vehicle in the span of things for Uber? And where do you see it, say, till 2030?
Yeah, so I think globally, I would want to split this in two parts. One is like what we are looking at it in terms of global things playing out and what we are expecting it to translate in terms of what will happen in India for us. So globally, I think we have made material commitments where we will want to go completely sustainable by 2040. That's entirely global. But having said that, I think there's a meaningful progress we have made in the West right now, where the ecosystem is much more mature. So if you talk about like cars specifically, we have roughly about 18,000 odd Teslas operating in the US, and the number is like fast increasing. Literally every month we are adding new cars, and then now other OEMs are also pretty much interested to get to that. The coming to the India story of it, like picking up from the global queue and what's happening in the ecosystem as well. So I think we are just like, I think that's our perspective, where we are 3 to 5 years behind the journey what other countries have actually seen. So in terms of the ecosystem readiness, whether it's financing, whether it's the right supply, whether it's like coming up of operators like Zip, Porter, and Moving, and then outside of that, then there is like a layer of charging infra which needs to get created. So that's the layer which we think, which any which ways the work got started a few years back, but now it is starting to reach a basic critical mass level, where from this it will just keep going on and above. Specifically commenting about our overall journey on three form factors we have in India. So we have four-wheelers, we have three-wheelers, and we have two-wheelers. I think on four-wheelers we are clear. The right TCO, the appropriate total cost of ownership structures will come in next few months as the right supply or the right model of the car also gets unlocked. But having said that, I think we think that as Uber, we need to be the forerunners to actually build the market and shape the market in the right manner. So that's where I think we just signed up with Tata Motors to get 25,000 odd electric cars on the road. And this will be, of course, a multi-year journey, but we think that we need to start somewhere. So that's where we will start. And of course, all of this will come on the back of the large operators we have created in the ecosystem. On three-wheelers, the problem is still about getting the right product, which in our prerogative should be a product which is launched by the market leader in three-wheelers on the OEM side. So once that product is there, there will be mass adoption. Till that time, I think it's more or less like fractional OEMs and like some tier 2, tier 3 city OEMs who are actually playing that game. Whether it will happen on E-Rix versus L3, that's something which is just a journey. So we are on a journey on that three-wheeler side. But two-wheeler is where it becomes very interesting for us. So if you look at in all three categories, TCO works right now at present for two-wheelers. So that is where I think a lot of action is about to happen for us in the near future as well. We are very bullish on increasing the overall number of electric two-wheelers on the platform. That is where any which ways we are working with a lot of partners in the ecosystem, Zip being the forerunner there. So talking about some numbers there, I think we will roughly be getting 5% of our overall supply right now as electric two-wheelers in one of our largest markets. And we are actually just looking to grow this number to almost like 30 odd % in this year itself. And this gets replicated across cities when the large operators also start penetrating in multiple cities. So once we have some sizable players, so for us to replace two-wheelers immediately with electric form factors will be much easier. So this is more here and now story. But from our vantage point, I think in next 2 to 3 years, the overall dynamics will change a lot, because we would have reached TCO in all three products. Financing unlock, I think Manish was mentioning about this, then Tushar mentioned about this, but financing now is sitting at that critical point where I think it's started to unlock the journey of going from HNI to leasing to NBFC to now to banks. That's the journey which we have seen. And now there are specific green funds which companies like Zip are also tapping on. So these green funds will actually put more put more fuel to the fire, and we will actually be seeing a lot of financing unlocks and innovative financing unlocks in terms of EV ownership. And but we still believe, like, this is still our firm belief that in next 12 to 24 months, even on two-wheeler side, the play is more fleet oriented or large partner oriented, because there's a lot of ecosystem development which needs to happen. And that cannot happen independently. But once we reach a critical mass in terms of the number of two-wheelers sold on electric in India, right now that number stands at about, like, last year it was about 7 odd lakhs in the total market of like 1.5 odd crores. So once that tipping point of 10 to 15% of overall penetration comes from two-wheelers on the electric side, that is where it starts becoming much more mainstream for like a regular driver to even buy a bike, rent a bike directly, and then keep operating. Till that time, they will still be in some kind of a closed ecosystem, which probably is something what Zip is doing, what Moving is probably be doing. But that's still like a few months out. But definitely very, very exciting, very, very evolving space from the vantage of ride sharing as of now.
Very well said. I completely agree. I guess TCO and financing, these two are very critical in order for the overall penetration to increase. But are there any mandates from government to make this percentage of your rides to be electric? Like Delhi has come out with certain mandates. So what are those mandates? We would want to hear a little bit on that front.
Yeah, so I will not be able to disclose the specifics of it, but like from the flavor of what's actually happening with governments is that like from a bike share standpoint, they essentially want to electrify that segment the fastest in terms of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers. Okay. And that is what we are seeing most of the governments also provide signaling towards. Mm-hmm. Of course, like they're like more than that, more than like we getting more EVs on the platform. This is right now more at an ecosystem level which needs to get solved. So do we have adequate supply of vehicles which are getting built? Do we have adequate number of financiers who are actually financing these vehicles to not just Zip and the fleet operators, also to the large audience at play? So with these two challenges which are currently hanging over the entire industry, the immediate switch to an electric is definitely not feasible. Doesn't look like it will happen immediately. But of course, there will be a journey which like all of us have to undertake, where from like getting a few onboardings on the platform which are like purely electric, then working with partners like Zip, and then other partners who actually start bringing this ecosystem all together, and then eventually moving towards a world in next few years where a regular person can actually buy a electric bike and don't care about range anxiety, don't care about financing, don't care about whether the product will ram down in next 12 to 18 odd months. So all of these ecosystem challenges need to get solved before the regs or the government side of mandates need to start coming in.
Correct. Absolutely right. Cool. So I'll move to the next question for the panel. And Samrat, it would be great if you can answer that for us. So while we look at the challenges on the rider side, who is actually an adapter for this, what are the challenges that businesses face with EV fleet, and how do you mitigate those challenges?
Very interesting question. Today, I think the biggest problem that we have is how do we make the delivery partner earn more if he's riding an EV, right? So I had a slightly different point of view to what Vikash and Manish said, right? In terms of giving the same payouts to them, because what I feel is what we look at over here is the net take home, right? And there is very significant difference in net take home between a person who's driving an electric vehicle versus a person who's driving an IC, right? And usually that goodness of the petrol cost that he saves, is quite large, especially when he does say 100 plus kilometers in a day, right? So I feel that while a part of that can be passed on to the delivery executive, maybe not the entire thing should be passed on, because then, kind of the market gets disrupted again, right? It's all about how these people think about the market. That is one major point, right? Uh, so, from a business point of view, how do I make the person earn more? Number one, by giving him more options to extend his shift, right? The biggest challenge today is, say, a few use cases, right? I go to a shopping station in Bangalore, but there are so many delivery partners over there, I have to wait for 2 hours to swap a battery, right?
Yep.
Uh, this will be a challenge till we have multiple points of swaps, or till we have fast charging points all over, right? We need to reduce the time of charging, reduce the downtime, ensure that he is on the road doing what he likes to do and what makes him earn more. That is how businesses can adopt faster. So very, very critical that we start talking, even get some government mandates about not only the vehicles but also the infra. I understand that a lot of building societies, housing societies, are taking these interventions, renting out parking lots for EV charging facilities and all. But that needs to be done on a much wider scale if we want this to, boom in the near future.
Fair point. So basically, you are saying that businesses should look at it from a cost saving point of view also. But at the same time, because there are a lot of infra challenges and things are evolving, so not completely, but a partial benefit should be passed on to the business and the remaining to the delivery executives. Correct?
Yeah.
Interesting
Yes.
point. That's an interesting point. So I have 4 minutes, and then we'll move to the viewers' question. So the next question, which I would want maybe Manish to answer, is on the customer side of things. Okay, so like we are looking at businesses, we looked at riders. Now let's look at the customer side of things. Do you think the customers value electric, sustainable deliveries and rides? Do you really promote this actively on your customer app? Is it a customer hook, seen as a customer hook, or is it just a supply initiative or some sustainable initiative at the company end? What on the customer side?
Well, the scale of business is so less that, and it's looks like more of an experiment today. So
Okay.
it's more of a supply side which we are focusing on. I think, but yes, as the business evolves, definitely this is going to be one of the hooks for the customer, because cognizance about green and carbon footprint is there. And I think there are a lot of people who say that, yes, we want to. So currently, it's only a supply initiative for us.
Sure. But you see in future customer valuing it once supply is significant.
Yes, definitely.
What's your thought on that, Aditya?
Yeah, that's like exactly the same thought I have. So right now it's like riders don't differentiate between an electric versus a non-electric vehicle. And in our terms, like on cars, you look at it, the fuel which we otherwise use, CNG, it's also a green fuel. So it's very difficult for riders to differentiate. So eventually that's a mix of the supply for us right now. Once this becomes material, then there is definitely merit in exploring all these things, but definitely needs to become material in terms of the supply we get from electric.
Okay, sure, makes sense. Okay, great. Let me now move to the questions from our viewers, because we are just running out of time. Let me read the first question. The first question is for Samrat. Samrat, it is, which model of electric vehicles is being preferred by driver partners currently? What could be the ideal electric vehicle with respect to price, range, and other specifications suited for driver partner?
Okay. See, let me just answer this question in two parts, right? Typically, delivery partners want, some people want convenience, some people want multiple utility vehicle, right? Uh, Say in a grocery business like Zepto's, right? You might have orders which are 10 kilos, 15 kilos. It's difficult to carry it on your shoulder. So it's always easier when you're driving out in the heat for say 8, 10 hours a day, right? Heat, rain, you can keep it somewhere. So that's when the commercial kind of vehicles with carriages and baskets come handy, right? Typically, these set of people will be the ones who will be only using it for delivery and not for personal use. So they'll be typically migrants who do not have a vehicle. They want to come, do put in a lot of hard work, earn, and go home, right? Then you have the convenience seekers who, like Vikash mentioned, that they would like to take the family out for a movie or two and use it for multiple purposes. For them, maybe something like if you've seen Pradeep, if you've seen the Zip vehicle, or typically like a scooty, how you see, right? You can keep it near your legs, the bag. That can help you, whether it's grocery or if it's food, you can just carry it on your back. So depends on what you're looking for, what type of delivery partner is targeting. And if you talk about price range, I think currently, more or less, if you consider the price of an Activa versus the price of an electric scooty, it's scooty is slightly higher, but it's almost same, right? So something around 80, 85,000. Typically, people finance it. So that is something that is not a deterrent as of today. However, what people look for is the range, because the battery capacity, whether you get two battery capacities, whether you get swaps easily, whether you have to charge, whether you have a fast charging feature with that battery, all of this matters, right? So there are companies which provide more expensive vehicles with a 120-kilometer range, right? Those can go beyond ₹1 lakh. However, you also have vehicles with 50-kilometer capacity, around 80,000 rupees cost, but you'll have to invest in charging those vehicles, maybe swapping more often. So again, typically people do not prefer multiple swaps because that kind of adds friction to their daily life. They would like one go, I'd like to do my shift, and then maybe it depends on the company who I'm working for, or how I manage the charge or swap feature.
So maybe a larger range swap would be better for them. Okay, great. Thanks. I hope that answers the question raised by Pradeep. Next question, Vikash, if you could take, I'll read the question for you. When we are speaking about TCO making sense for two-wheelers, is this considerate of the Indian FAME subsidiary plan? If that did not exist, would TCO already be realized?
Yeah.
Very important point.
That's a good question. So, typical vehicle in two-wheeler comes with a battery pack of 3 kilowatt hour, and FAME subsidy is about 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour. So it's a 45,000, and for a vehicle that's sold in the range of 1 lakh, 45,000 is almost like 50% kind of discount. The thing is, you can make electric vehicle as expensive as possible, but as long as you're able to cover the distance in the same proportion. In my head, if your electric vehicle is costing you 2x compared to ICE vehicle, if you're able to run electric vehicle twice the distance of the ICE vehicle, you are breaking even. So let's say in this case, when the FAME 2, the 50% reduction in the cost is not happening, it increases the cost by 50% because FAME 2 is not happening. You have to run and sweat the asset 50% more to make sure that TCO becomes attractive. So without FAME 2 also, there will be a use case. For the Zomato was talking about 150 kilometer. In that kind of use case, definitely TCO will make sense even without FAME 2 subsidy.
Very fair point. So let's not look at it that if FAME 2 goes away, it will not make sense. It will still make sense because the higher cost of asset covers up for the running cost, which you will say. Very good point. Okay, next question is for Aditya. So I read it for you, Aditya. How does B2C brands is Uber leasing out these 25,000 vehicles from Tata and actually hiring drivers to run on your platform, or how does it actually work?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, all these vehicles will primarily be taken by the exclusive fleet operators we have for Uber. And these operators will, like, they will have multiple structures to own these cars, whether it will be leasing, whether it will be debt or outright purchases. So they will have deploy multiple modes of owning the vehicle. And once they own the vehicle, then between the fleet operator and the driver, there are multiple models which they follow. Like for electric cars, we see that primarily it's a salaried model where a fixed salary is given to the driver and then there is a variable incentive, which typically works right now. But once the ecosystem matures and then when we reach a few thousand cars, our anticipation is it will also move towards the standard rental or revenue share kind of models where between drivers and the fleet operators they can fleet operators will rent it out or give the car on a revenue share to the end driver. Right now, considering it's a closed ecosystem on charging, which only the operator is able to build and provide. So all operators and even drive, it will be in both their interest to actually put these cars on a fixed plus a variable setup with the driver. But like once things mature on the ecosystem side, I think it will be much more fluid, and then it will happen the way it happens for the CNG cars.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Aditya. Next question, Manish, I'll request you if you can take. How does B2C brands like Uber, Zomato, Porter help drivers in risk sharing of asset ownership as of today?
Yeah, so currently the mode which we are working is that we have to build the ecosystem. And in order to build the ecosystem, we have to ensure there's adoption of the EVs. That is our long-term goal. In order to do that, we have multiple initiatives which we have launched along with the different OEMs. A is we run MBC programs whereby we guarantee certain amount. If you're logging in for X number of hours, you definitely want to make this much money. If you don't, we pay you the differential amount. Then we are also working with certain financing and companies and OEMs in order to bring leased model of the vehicle, attractive lease rentals, which are daily rentals or a weekly rental, so that people get an opportunity to try the vehicle before they buy. Because a buying decision is difficult in the absence of high cost of vehicle, because of the high cost of vehicle and absence of easy financing, then probably leasing can really help them build that confidence over a period of time. Thirdly, we have been trying our level best that the allocation which is happening to the EV vehicle is of a certain distance, because the range anxiety which kicks in should not kick in easily. Fourth thing is even the deployment of the vehicles. We have been pushing, we have been identifying the specific routes where there's adequate charging infrastructure and enough of demand to serve a particular. So we try to deploy the vehicles in those specific areas. We have been, these are some of the initiatives which we run, but there are others we are looking for. So our intent is very clear that we have to build the ecosystem. We know there's definitely a business opportunity in future in there, and we want to invest in that.
Very fair point. Great. Thank you, Manish. The next question is for me. I'll just read it. Tushar, do you think the passengers will ever want to buy the Gogoro vehicles in their everyday, considering Vikash's point of respect, if they launch their product of delivery? So I would like to answer it in this way. Firstly, the Gogoro vehicles for the Indian market are still not out. They are making vehicles which would be suitable for the Indian market at a price point which is acceptable in the Indian market. However, I would say that India is not a price sensitive; it's a value sensitive market. Gogoro has very advanced technology when it comes to swapping, and I'm sure they can do a lot of value add in the life of the Indian consumers, because with the 2 second, 3 second swap, the riders save a lot of cost. Their vehicles are much more powerful. So at the end of the day, whether the key thing is that it should make economic sense for the Indian consumer. And I'm sure they will come out with a product which will add value and also make economical sense for the Indian consumer. Yeah. So I'll move to the next question. I hope that answered the question raised by Saransh. Next question is for Aditya. What do you think about Blue Smart and the disruption in EV adoption?
Thanks. That's a great question. I was anyways expecting a question on the theme per se. So the way to look at this is that there are two things which Blue Smart is trying to do. One, they are actually getting the form factor which is electric, which is very standard that you put electric cars. The second problem which they are trying to address is like they would want to give a very specific service, which is a pre-scheduled service for specific cohort of the riders, which use ride sharing as their overall use case. So the way to look at this is that have they been able to capture the space? Yes, in that particular pre-scheduled rides provided through an electric car, they have actually been able to do that. But there are challenges when you scale that. Like, so we have gone through that journey as a ride sharing company, that when you start scaling it at an on demand, that is where like the benefit for all the parties in the ecosystem starts to come. So the first party is the driver, second party is the rider, and the third party is the marketplace which operates it. So in the entire value chain, when you look at the driver, if the driver is not doing X number of trips a day, then the driver will not be able to derive the full value of getting to a platform or a marketplace like a large ride sharing platform. Second one is the rider. The value proposition for the rider is the best possible, lowest commercial. So if you want to serve a specific set of specific segment of the market, you can actually definitely do that by charging higher. You will get some relevant audience for that, and you will not be able to play in the entire space from the rider side of it. And when it comes to the marketplace, you can actually make it work. Like, I think we have a couple of people from the marketplace side of things here, but you can make it work only when it works at scale. You cannot do it at a few thousand odd cars. You'll have to do it at a few lakh odd cars. So that's the kind of scale we are looking at. So our overall opinion here is that once the specific use cases are fulfilled, then you have to move into the overall on-demand side of things. That is where things get a little different from the way things work when you are specific use case scenario building of rideshare. From our standpoint, I think we are very clear that we would want to serve all the use cases of rideshare. So whether it's an on-demand, whether you need a car right now, whether it's a reserve kind of a product where you want to pre-schedule a ride and need a car by then, whether you want to go for an intercity trip or you want to take an intracity trip, whether you want to do that trip on an electric car versus a CNG car. So all those use cases which are available, which are possible for riders in India, we will try to address all the possible use cases at a broader level, not just restrict ourselves to some one or two specific use cases. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I guess it does. Thanks, Aditya. So in the benefit of time, I would take the last question, which is, okay, so what are the top 3 policy measures government should do to help accelerate EV adoption in commercial vehicles? Vikash, would you like to answer that?
Sure. No, I think to be fair to the government, they have done it enough in terms of providing the central level FAME 2 subsidy, GST 5%, green plate. On top of that, the state government in Delhi specifically coming with a more fiscal subsidy, road tax, registration free. I think this government has done a lot. But I think from a commercial delivery perspective, where it makes sense is that this whole permit system or the entry system barrier that is applicable for ICE vehicle. I think that has to be communicated more effectively to the traffic and all, so that there is no barrier in terms of moving electric vehicle 24 by 7 in the city level. If that's one thing that government can enforce, that will have a huge implications on naturally business shifting from ICE vehicle to EV vehicles. The demand for EV vehicles increase, and you will see more distance being covered by the electric vehicles. I think that is the one important measure that government can do to further accelerate the EV adoption on top of what they are already doing.
Sure. Manish, would you like to add anything to this
I
question?
think there are two, three things which we feel that government can do. One is, I think the most components of the FAME subsidy are to the two-wheeler and three-wheeler space. I think the trucking has been completely ignored. And that is one area which is there because, as I mentioned, we operate in multiple categories, but we can be committal about only two categories because the vehicles are only available in two categories. So I think that is one area which is definitely has to be looked at. Second thing, I think there has to be, I think, more work which has to be done in terms of standardization, though there are regulations which are, I think, almost on the verge of coming. So, with the battery standardization, charging standardization, because the next level would be that when we got a standardized systems which is being used by most of the vehicles, it would be easy for us to integrate those systems in our allocation logics and all that, so that we can give a more seamless experience to both the customer and the partner. So I think the standardization is something which is anticipated. Uh, Third thing is, I think, which I also feel that I think there's a lot more work which needs to be done in terms of the spare part industry for EV specifically, because still many of the parts, and I think that is one of the blockers for manufacturing of EV there, because most of the parts are still being imported from various countries. So I think these are three areas definitely need some more attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Any last comments from you, Samrat, before we close down?
No, I mean, I was just thinking when Vikash and Manish were answering, right? Maybe today a lot of regulations are driven towards OEMs and how passengers, consumers can buy it. But I think more focus needs to be, how government can mandate the building of more infra. That is something that that's a big problem today. I mean, if you have OEMs, there's no point. You need infra. So maybe mandating a certain number of swapping station, charging stations, maybe regulating the whole petrol pump angle, because that is something that is already developed. Something like what Tesla has done in the US, right? They have done a monopoly over there. Entire network is owned by Tesla. Now you take a subscription out of that. Something of that sorts, I think, needs to be thought of.
Sure. Any last closing comments from you, Aditya?
Yeah, on this one, I think it's like just what the panelists added. I echo that. But overall, I think like on one side, we have all the subsidies. On the other side, there's a tax break as well, which the government is giving. Yeah. If you look at the exchequer loss, if all the ICE vehicles get converted to electric, let's say overnight, it will be humongous. So I think the government needs to actually come out very clearly on what's their roadmap to actually build the capacity on this one. So like, for instance, like players like Maruti, which is the largest market share OEM, they are still sitting on the fence. They are not coming out with the relevant product just because they think that there is something which is missing in the puzzle, which the government will change in due course of years, where then they will be left hanging. And that's the kind of narrative which we hear from OEMs as well. Yeah. The second piece is on building the ecosystem. I think some of them have already mentioned about this, but standardization of ecosystem building also needs to come like on the side of it. You cannot expect that overnight some of these swapping stations or fast chargers or other charging ports will actually come up in petrol pumps. I think it's not that petrol pumps will essentially become those charge points or CPOs. It's a very different ball game altogether. I think we are right now trying to solve things in pieces, like as industry. I think the integrator role which the government needs to play needs to be much more than just like giving some subsidies or providing some piecemeal breaks to some specific industries. So, and they need to have a roadmap that over next 10 years, what will be done, so that it instills confidence in the industry to make those kind of massive commitment in terms of the capital which is required to this to just build this entire industry all over again.
Fair point. Very fair point. Great. So with this, we'll come to the close of the session. Very insightful, and I hope it has been very insightful for our viewers as well. Thanks everyone for taking out time. It was a pleasure to host you, and looking forward to reconnect again with some newer topics. And all of us have huge responsibility to make this successful and do our bits and piece in making the overall world a more greener place to live at. With that, I'll sign off. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Nice
Thanks, everyone.
interacting with all of
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks a lot.